Welcome back to RoyalBluFX. In today's video, we're going to go over the trades that we've taken over the past week. I'm going to tell you this is probably one of the most amazing week that I've ever had, based off of how consistently profitable we were and how consistently we were able to take trades in this market, especially the US30 that we always trade. Also, before we begin, I want to tell you guys that tomorrow we're going to be releasing a new video. It's called I don't know what it's called yet exactly, but we're going to be talking about order flow, and we're going to talk about what order flow is, healthy order flow versus unhealthy order flow. So let's begin. All right, so we obviously made 149.7% R on all these trades this whole entire week. So we're definitely going to run through this, and I'm going to show you how we made all these percentages. Okay, so let's go start from the very beginning. I believe we started all the way on the 1 hour, and we started on a Tuesday. So let me just zoom out here. Alrighty, right there. We were on the 1 hour. We analyzed the 1 hour. We were here at this point in time, right over here at the very high. So obviously I analyzed all this, and I put my supply and demand and all that good stuff over here. Once price was all the way up here, I could see that price failed based off of this liquidity that was forming here. We could see this wick here took all this liquidity, so we knew that price was just going to go bearish from here on out. Now, obviously, you might be asking me, well, why didn't you take a sell immediately from here, right? Because if you knew this was a supply, why didn't you just take it? Well, good question. I was doing a lot of things during that day, so I wasn't able to really analyze the charts on a Monday because I didn't start on a Monday. I started on a Tuesday. So let's go all the way down here. We dropped all the way down to the 5 minute, and we obviously had some demand zones placed right over here. If I just go right here. All right, as you can see, we had multiple demand zones. I saw that the structure on the higher time frame was bearish, but we were still looking for some buys because we knew that price was going to hit these demand zones. So we're going to look for, not a long-term buy, but a short-term buy. We're obviously scalpers. The best time to ever look for trades, the best way to trade is obviously following the trend. That your trend is your friend is what they all say, right? So let's go begin right over here. All right. I know this seems a little tiny and very small here, but bear with me and you'll see what I'm seeing here and why I took these trades. All right, so as you see here, there was a zone. Price approached it. It sort of broke. It sort of kind of floated around. But I understood that if price kind of lingers around the demand area, may not fully entirely break it, that price should generically push upside because there may be some sort of weight holding on that demand zone. Okay, so we went all the way down to the 15 minute. We were actually on the 1 minute like this, right? And we saw this here lingering around all this data, right? And then we just scaled all the way down to 5 seconds because that's our entry time frame. And what we always look for is obviously where price should be going to a supply or demand zone and waiting for price to hold and or respect at that supply or demand zone, like so. Here you can see we had a huge chalk. We had this chalk where price broke to the downside, price broke to the upside, and then we saw where the origin of the move happened. Let me just move this here, and the origin of the move was this low, right? Now, why is that? Why is it that low? Well, it's because price originated from this low to break this high here. So we thought to ourselves, okay, wonderful. Since we had this huge down move, I decided to split this order block here in half, giving me 0.5% entry on here. So if I lost it, it wouldn't be that much. It wouldn't be that much to lose, obviously. And then we just entered the market based off of structure. Okay, this is our low here. This is our high. So I just entered it, looking to target the supply zone here because this is the next supply zone that is looking to go bearish from here based off of higher time frame structure. If you zoom out, you can see that there's a high and that there's a low, right? Generically speaking, we're actually going against the trend here. So obviously taking trades against the trend is a little bit more harder and it's less probable because the market could just do this, flip right around and just continue the downtrend, right? So going against the trend isn't always the best idea. And if you were to go against the trend, always target your current highs here. Maybe not the entire supply zone, but just your current highs here, because prices are somewhat guaranteed to get to your current high, but not at your supply zone, because prices are never meant to mitigate here. So what did I do? Of course, I took a buy here and just waiting for price to go up there. Now, my general rule of thumb is to wait until price gets at least to 4%, where I would take around 4% partials. And there, as you can see over here, there's the 4 right there, right? I had 4% taken already, so I took 4% partials and let the rest run, due to the fact that, you know, price wasn't guaranteed to go to the supply zone. So it's always good. It's always best practice to pay yourself before anything, right? Because why not pay yourself, right? Just a little bit, you know, because you never know if the markets are going to go entirely into that supply or demand zone, based off of how the markets move behaviorally, right? So it's always good practice to pay yourself a little bit here. So that's what we did. We paid ourselves, and obviously and evidently here you could see that price started to push down here like this, and it just took us out at break even, because we had the last part of it floating, right? So we had the last part of it break even, and we didn't, you know, we went on about our day. All right, so we continued here. What we're doing here is we're following structure now. We understand that price is still is bearish, obviously, in the higher time frame, but we also highlighted another demand zone here, where we were thinking to ourselves, okay, well, you know, anytime price comes to demand or supply, price may potentially hold and shows that there's a lot of weight holding. Therefore, we're just going to look for that. For the demand to hold and then to take price, towards the supply zone. So as you can see here, we were ready to look for potential buys. I marked this demand out for some reason. I don't know why, to be honest, since the demand area was not tapped. There you can see demand area was tapped, and then to our knowledge here, we're looking for that buy. Obviously, what we would want to do here is look for the chalk. Let me see if we got the chalk. I'm pretty sure we got the chalk here. I didn't mark it out, and sometimes I don't mark out chalks because, you know, sometimes when you're scalping, you don't have time to, like, you know, draw out your structure or your lines out, right? So there we go. We saw that we had that chalk. There was the break below, there was that break above here, and then we knew that since there's a demand level there holding, and it's holding this weight, the price should push up, at least push up to some supply level, right? It could be to a supply level, or it could be to the current high, which is right there. All right, so we took this buy, holding and then trusting in our process here. Obviously, you can see here we got wicked out just by a hair, but I was like, you know what, we're still in the market. This is still a demand zone. I want to see what price can do. Now to this point, I am sort of, you can say it, I can be honest about this, obviously, where I am, you know, in my risk sort of thought process here. I'm risking now. I'm in my sort of gambling thought process here, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, should I get out or should I just stay in? You know, 100% of the time, you should always think to yourself, you know, I need to protect my capital. You shouldn't be just gambling your capital. You know, if you think it's a bad trade, if you think this is horrible, then just don't, you know, just get out, right? So again, trusting our thought process, the market pushed highs over here, really high, and we were wanting to get that 4 or 5% to close. I believe this is 5.3%. So we were just kind of sticking in this. Okay, once it hit 5%, roughly around there, almost there, we took our capital right there. As soon as that tapped in, we just got out. We didn't care what the market was doing from here on out, right? You can see that we have that high, we have that low here. And now prices just went bearish from here on out. Now, I didn't look for any sells. I should have, but I didn't. The reason why I wasn't looking for sells because we're at this demand area here, and we were looking to see if price could break potentially above these highs, and if it did, we would look for the continuation here to push price bullish. Obviously, that's not what happened here. We're looking for this low to be broken. You can see that there's that little line that I marked out there. I marked out the supply zone. Obviously, if I was to hypothetically look to sell there, I would sell it there immediately. Now, we did get tapped in just by a hair. I didn't take this trade. I was just thinking to myself, hypothetically, if I was to sell it, I would sell it probably there. Obviously, you can see that this is inducement. This is actually a correct sell, the supply zone. So if you were to sell this would be pretty bad based off of your risk intake. If you see that, that's a huge risk zone there, right? And you would look to target the low. Yeah, so obviously we just continued and waited out to see what price would do here. Let me play this a little faster to get to our next trade. We were still lingering around this demand zone, so but we're marking out structure, we're marking out supply and demand zones here. We saw we had a huge push to the downside. You can see that there was a break of structure down here. So my thought process was, okay, well, we're looking for a sell. You know, what else are you looking for, right? You can see here price left some inducement, also left some liquidity up at the highs here. It didn't really quite touch our last up move here. You can see that was the low, that was our high here. So price didn't even touch there. So we were still just lingering around there. I was being patient with this one, really. I wasn't looking to try and take buys now, even though we were still in the demand zone here. We were waiting for price to push back. Okay, price broke just ever so slightly, right? And then now we're still waiting for price to push back. We're not rushing into anything right now. You can see price is making lower lows, lower highs, and then again, we had another break of structure. Right now, I could look for other sells in here, but we're still in this demand zone. It's still not confirmed that prices should go bearish here just yet, let alone selling against this demand zone while the market's in this demand zone. So we were just waiting patiently, right? Let's play this faster. It's a little slow here for some reason. Okay, so once price, excuse me, let me stop it there. Once price got up there, I understood this was the sell. You might be asking me, well, how do you guys know? How do you know this is the sell? Well, again, you can see that this is the larger move here that pushed down, right? This is the major move that broke structure here. And as we see evidently here, there was imbalance and liquidity left. You can see all this liquidity, internal liquidity creating in here. So by no doubt, this was the true sell for me. I just took a sell right away because of structure, essentially, right? You can see here, there's your high, there was your low, there was your high, there's your low, and this is the next high that needs to be created in order for price to continue to the bearish. So I took it, and yeah, we were holding this market we were holding this trade all the way down to this low. We weren't looking anywhere to the far left to really see if we should hold this trade any longer. Again, I'm just scalping here. I'm not doing much I'm not trying to be greedy in the market, just trying to take what I see here in front of me and I'm out. All right. And I believe that was this was Tuesday. This was all Tuesday. And I believe I didn't have all the trades, the rest of the trades these are all the rest of the trades that I've taken. Let me just zoom out to see if there's anything else here. Okay, let's go on the 1 minute. Okay, so yeah, that was it. That was all it. And then obviously next day, Wednesday, comes around, and then we were just analyzing the market again. Let me just kind of quickly go through all this. Okay, so right here, I can see there was another trade that we did take on the 28th. This is probably lunch break or something. This whole bearish move to the downside here. We were here. We were just following order flow here. We weren't doing much, but only following order flow and structure. So you can see that there is that high, right? There's that low here that just created price broke structure. So our anticipation is to always wait for prices to retrace to the upside. We saw this on the 1 minute. We waited on the 5 seconds to give us that confirmation. Once prices reached this high, we waited for that chalk. You can see right here how price respected the supply zone here, broke this low here, and this gave us the chalk formation. Now we just simply waited for price to retrace back up. As anytime price gives us a chalk, right? Price is always going to come back to the high. More times than not, if price did not create a flip, that is. And in this case, you can see that there's no flips created. So we just took that sell and then trusted in our process again. And we were looking to target, I believe it was 15%. Yeah. So we had a really tight risk here, and we just trusted in our process. Now this one took a little bit, based off of how price was consolidating. Of course, my general rule of thumb is to always take 5%, guys. You always need to do that, because if you don't, you're going to be effed up if you don't take some of your money out. Just stay in the market. Just take some of that money out and stay, and let the rest run. And as you can see, we've just been consolidating this for quite some time, but eventually it did play out. And at times when you see the markets do this, right, when prices are consolidating, sometimes you get a little aggravated to get out now, or whatever. You just don't want to be in the markets at all, based off of this information. But just believe in your process, right? Believe in your trade, and everything should work out. All right, so that was that for that entire day. I believe this was on the 28th still, right? Yes. Let's go to the next trade. All right. So, okay, here we go. So now this is Wednesday. I believe it was the 29th of Wednesday. Okay, let me see. It was the 29th. Okay, so we're here on the 29th. When we trade, obviously, we always look at the higher time frame structure, and we always look to see sort of how the market moves, right? We're seeing the behavior on the higher time frame. We just approached a huge demand zone here, so prices were holding here. I wasn't looking for buys at this time of the day. Since price was all the way bearish, you can see price broke bearish here, right there. So my intent was to look for sells at this point in time. And then once we waited for price to push back, we saw that we had our supply zones, some of the supply zones that were unmitigated. Now bear here with me while I break this down a little bit for you guys. Price was pushing bullish here. We can see that we had a chalk here. We were looking for that buy if price came back here, but that didn't happen, and so price just started pushing bullish, and I was like, all right, well, I marked out my supply zone. And the reason why this is our supply zone here is because if you can see here, this was our low, this was our high here, so there was a chalk that happened here, and this is considered our flip zone right here. Okay, so you can see here price broke down, flipped, tapped, and pushed bearish. So what I noticed again, I was just following sort of the structure pushing bearish, right? So we saw there was a break of structure here, so we knew this was mitigated here, and so we had another break of structure. Then I looked all the way back up. I'm like, all right, cool. I see this is the unmitigated area. The price did not mitigate. Price left some liquidity at the highs over there. As you can see, I didn't really mark it out there, but I just marked it as a line. And then so I understood that this was our next area of supply. Okay, once price got there, I was waiting very patiently again. I was waiting to follow the rules. I dropped down to the 5 seconds, like so. You can see here, price tapped our supply zone, but there was nothing impressive here. The price was breaking structure. There was a low, another low, breaking. Then I was thinking to myself, okay, well, there's no impulsive moves that are happening here. Price is just retracing, but it's retracing slowly, right? So you can tell that the banks weren't involved in this move at all. I mean, banks are involved in every move, all right, but they weren't putting millions and millions of dollars in here to push the market fast like this impulsive move, right? So what I saw here was obviously there's liquidity. price pushed up a little higher. It still respected our supply zone. My thought process here was, okay, well, now we saw the banks were involved here. Now I got to see price coming down bearish somewhat quick, right? And there you go. That's the move I was looking for. I marked out my high. I marked out my low. There we go. We have that chalk presented to ourselves, right? So my anticipation was just to wait patiently for price to push bullish and wait for prices to mitigate at the very high. Why? Because this is the origin of the first move that pushed bearish here. So that was my anticipation, was just to wait for price to push bullish and then just wait to take a sell and potentially wait for another confirmation at this high to take a sell. As you can see down at this low, this demand here wasn't mitigated. We see this was the last down candle. This is probably inducement. It is inducement when prices get very close to the order block and they don't actually mitigate. They just induce you. So that you can see there's early buyers in the market here and there's sellers, late sellers in the game, okay? Right over here. People think that it's a sell right now, but in fact it's a buy. And so there were buyers here buying quick, right? What do? I just wait patiently and just follow structure. First origin of the move, huge impulse to the downside. We know we don't do this. The banks manipulate this, or at least they push prices to quickly like this. And so we just waited for prices to fill in, right? We know where prices are going to fill in based off of our structure. We see that we had a chalk here, a major chalk to the upside, to the downside. You can also see now we're just following structure. Okay, right over here you can see that there is a, let me see here, I believe, yeah, there's some structure. I was on the 1 second right over here. Let me show you what I'm looking here. Right over here. You can see I marked out 2 supply zones. We had right there to the left, there's a high and a low. Right there. There's a low, right, and there's a high. So what did price do over here? Price actually just broke here, right, and nothing mitigated this order block. Okay, this is considered to be a flip zone here, right, but nothing actually mitigated. Everything just went bearish. So we're like, okay, cool, fine, this is where price is supposed to be coming to mitigate. Once price came up there, we were all the way here. What we were looking for again is a break of structure, simply a chalk. So if I zoom in right here, look at that. There's a break to the upside and break to the downside. So we got that chalk. Prices respected this supply zone. And then we took our sell here. We left our risk just above this, just right at this high here, just in case price wanted to go and tap that supply zone even higher if it wanted to, right? And then we just entrusted in the process and we just stuck to it. We were obviously looking for our major break of structure here to happen, which it just did. We could have looked to take another sell, but we didn't. We just stayed in this market, waited, and trusted in our process. As you can see, price went impulsively bullish here, and then we're like, okay, we know there's a chalk. We see that there's a chalk happening right there, chalk above, chalk below. Prices should tap this supply zone potentially, or this one, and then push down bearish. All right, and look at that. See what I'm talking about? Prices went even higher just to go and tap this little order block here. And then this is why I had my supply zone, my risk zone so high. We stayed in the market, obviously. Prices were really playing around here. We were just thinking, okay, we'll just entrust the process and just wait for markets to go bearish here. I could have stacked more orders here. I didn't want to be in the market for too long, because I didn't want to be exposed in the markets for too long, because this is a huge trade that we're taking, and we really need to be in and out. So let me go back on the 5 minutes, because we were monitoring this trade on the 5 minutes here. 5 seconds. Let's go here. Okay, here we are. All right, so we monitored this and we just stayed in it, stuck to our guts. As you can see here, notice I played it a little too quick. Notice that we marked out this low here as a potential area of demand. And I knew that the trend was going bearish here because of if you zoom out here, you can see that we had a huge break of structure, right? There's a high, there's a low. This was the break of structure if I zoom out here, right over here, right? So we had a huge bearish downtrend right over here. So we should have just stayed in this whole entire sell, obviously. But what I did was I took partials here at 5% right over here, and I let the rest run. Surprisingly to our knowledge here, sometimes markets do this, like this. Prices go and take you out. So I went out at break even on my second trade here, on the trade that I had running, the rest of it. So I had that break even, and look what happened here. Price tapped ever so slightly at this higher supply zone, and then price just started going down, going bearish like crazy. This is the true move that I was looking for in the market. And sometimes, sometimes trades just don't work out correctly. You kind of just need to, lose sometimes, right? All right, prices went bearish here. Let's keep going. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that's where I would have been out, right there. Okay, so as we play this along, we were probably at lunch or doing something here. We were waiting for price to retrace back up to the supply level. And the reason for that, and as you know, actually, let me just stop here. As you know, here's my demand level. I wasn't able to take this buy again because I was doing something. I think I was having lunch or something, but that was my demand level to look for buys. I don't think I would have been able to enter this market because it didn't have any confirmation at the lows here. So, and at times price does this a lot. As you can see here, there was that clear inducement there. So price took that inducement and then also created liquidity here, as you can see, right, like right there, and it took that out, tapped it, and goes. After price takes out liquidity, essentially markets just start shooting up. That's their general behavior, So yeah, I don't know if I would have been able to catch this even if I wanted to. I would have still needed confirmation. Once we're at this high here, I was looking for the sell, and only because if you zoom out, let me see. I think this was the supply zone is still here. The very extreme high is right here. So we saw this high here lingering, not being able to break above this extreme high over here. So all the way to the right over here, I was like, all right, well, if we see price stopping, and if we see any signs of chalks, then obviously I'm going to be looking for sells here. No doubt, right? So this is what happened. I marked out some of the liquidity right here. We saw price was at this low and there this high. Price was overextended here, so therefore I was telling myself, okay, well, I know price should go bearish now that since this is the origin of the move. This is the first break of structure. Okay, there's a chalk that's happening here. This low here. Oops, not that. Right down here, there's a chalk. There's the chalk, right? So when the when the chalk happens for the first time, right, or if any structure, whatever structure happens, we anticipate for price to pull back, right? It may not mitigate fully, but it's pulling. We're expecting that retracement. So the two things that gave me confluence here was that high over here, all the way to the left, that was being respected by right here. And also more confluence gave me that this was the liquidity here. Price came in, took out that liquidity, so I treated that as a chalk. You can clearly see it here. We have that high and that low broken here. So we were looking for that chalk. Fortunately for us, we didn't take a sell right away. We're still waiting for price to come back up to an area of supply. Didn't give us anything yet. As of yet, we're just waiting. A lot of the times, as a trader, you just need to be patient. Be patient, just watch the market. Watch the market do its thing. Don't react so fast to the market, because generally we just think to ourselves that we have to be in the trade right away when we don't need to be, right? Right here you can see there's liquidity forming. Prices broke bullish here. We have a chalk. I didn't buy anything. I was just watching the market again. I was just waiting for prices to really retrace to this full supply zone here. And then prices are pushing bullish here. It's respecting, what do you call it? It's respecting the, the demand zone here, right? Respecting structure. Let me just push this a little faster. And then price created liquidity here. So this also told me, I was like, okay, cool. I know I'm supposed to look for buys here. This is our last down candle before the major move up. And it created liquidity. So not only liquidity, but it created inducement first, and then it created liquidity altogether like this. So this gave me a hindsight. It told me that, okay, that we're looking for buys as soon as price comes back down to that zone right down here. But in the meantime, I'm going to look for that sell, because now we have a guaranteed chalk here, and price really broke bearish. It showed us that the banks came in fully and showed us that price needs to be refilled now at good prices, right? So we don't want to buy, we don't want to sell prices at a very expensive price. We want to sell price at a very cheap price. Okay, or sorry, we want to be buying at a very cheap price, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're waiting for price to go bullish here. It's a little slow. And to my knowledge, I took that sell right away. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, why did you take that sell right away, right? Shouldn't you wait for confirmation? Yes, you can wait for confirmation, but to my knowledge, everything met in terms of my rules. All the confluence was there, and we took all of the trade, right? The confluence was that high was being respected by that previous high over here. We had that chalk here, right? We had this huge push to the downside. That's more confluence. There's liquidity sitting at the lows with inducement. There's more trendline liquidity sitting right there that needs to be taken. All this internal liquidity has just been taken. You know, all this void. This is considered structure void, or void structure, whatever you want to call it. It just voided out all these orders, closed all these orders, and now it's time to push to the downside. And so we just entrusted in this process and waited for the markets to go in TP here. If we can go a little faster. Now this one took a little while, and it was a little aggravating because, you know, my patience tolerance, just like anybody else's, is, you know, very small, right? But this is why, you know, part of trading is to really just be patient, right? So we're watching this, we're not really watching it. We put a notification bar if it took us out, and we had our stop loss. If it took our stop loss, then we're out. Surprisingly to us, we had our stop loss just above here, so it didn't take us out. So I was like, phew, you know, we were still in this trade, thankfully. Because more liquidity was creating here, a lot more liquidity. There's also liquidity building at the very highs here. And so we were just sticking to this trade, working and hopefully playing out to its best. As you can see here, prices just went bearish like crazy here. And not only that, took out liquidity. This is my first target, and then I was potentially looking for buys here, but at this time I wasn't even on the market, so I didn't look for buys at this time. And thankfully, well, you know, nothing worked out here. As you can see, prices are just going bearish, and that was it for this trade. Right, we took a excuse me, there's a bell. Excuse me. All right, we're back. Okay, here we go. Prices are bearish here. We were following order flow here in this trade. We're following structure. As you can see, we have a extreme high. We have an extreme low. Price went up, and then price broke bearish, so we have another high here. So what I did here was I naturally just highlighted this zone here, even though my zone kind of goes a little bit over this high here. And but I was watching it. I wasn't doing anything. You can see price went bearish here, and then I waited patiently for price to come back. Right, I'm looking for that huge push to the downside, and then waiting for price to come back. And I'm essentially just playing structure here this whole time. There we go. Prices showed us that it went bearish, so I'm just following the highs and lows. You can see there's a high, there's a low, there's a high, there's another low. Okay, prices broke bullish. I could have looked for buys here if price came down, but I didn't. So this is one of my favorite trades here. You know, right here. Okay, so I took three There are three triplets and not quadruplets. Let's go to the 1 minute here, and you'll see why I was looking for sells here. So, if we zoom out here, you can see we're following structure. We saw that there was a low. This major low was respected here. Price pushed up, but we're also following structure. We saw that there was a high, there was a low, there was a high, and another low. Price came at this high, so we waited patiently for our price to get there, and then we just essentially waited for. We took a snipe entry in this one. Again, just entrusting our process based off of structure. I didn't take any other trades based off of this chalk here, or did I actually? Excuse me. Yeah, I marked out my chalk here, so this is my sell there. You can see there. So I just took a sell there with risk at the very high, and just waited for price to play out. You know, we're targeting that extreme low down here. We're looking to take partials at this high, and then maybe at this low to finish at this low. So while structure was creating to the downside, we saw more chalks happening. Right, we're following structure here. We saw we had a high, a low, another high, right? And then we're looking for price to go bearish here for another potential move. Right here, this is a good sign for us. This is telling us that the banks are in the market. They're pushing the prices lower, so we can take advantage of this next supply zone here. Okay, you can see that there's liquidity forming right there. And then once that liquidity is shown, I had my risk set at 0.5% here. Didn't take a full risk, full 1% risk, obviously, because it was just the zone was so huge that I like to take, half a percentage. Of course, we're entrusting our process, and everything's just going bearish here now. This is about when the market London session was just closing, or starting to close, or was nearing to close, and we were kind of needing to get out as soon as possible because we're, scalping here, obviously. So what did I do here? I zoomed out, saw that there's a high, there's a low, another high, another low, and another high that needed to be taken. Right. We took that trade, sniped away based off of structure. We saw that there's a lot of confluence here. You can see that there was liquidity. This was the extreme high. Excuse me. Okay, and we just stayed and trusted our process here and waited for price to target at least the first TP that we had at the very bottom. I'm going to play this out for you guys here. Okay. It looks very intimidating, obviously, and it is based off of how choppy and crazy prices here. Now, as you can see, price is creating liquidity. It's creating sell side and buy side liquidity. So we knew we were in a liquidity zone here, and we knew that we needed to get out as soon as possible. But where do we get out exactly? Well, I'll show you where. This is our first TP right there. Fortunately, I wasn't so tough enough to hold this trade, so I got out of all three trades, I got out right at this low here, and then just let price do whatever it needed to do from here. But yeah, like this demand zone here, I was potentially looking for a buy because this was an unmitigated demand zone, and as you can see here, price just tapped and just went on about, and I was out of these trades. Obviously, I needed time to breathe before I go into any other trades, and then you can see just price shot up. Okay, so we're here on the 5 minute. I was able to mark our last structural high on the 5 minute, which is here. There was a high, there was a low. Price was just lingering. There was so much liquidity here that it was just telling me that price should be coming back to this supply zone. So I quickly went to the downside here. I was trying to see what price was doing here. I saw that we had this huge impulsive move to the upside. It grabbed all this liquidity. I was also anticipating that prices should come up to this supply zone, but when price did this told me, okay, well, we're looking for sells. We're looking to sell this, we're looking to sell this, right? Well, not necessarily. Since price is still bullish, I wasn't able to sell it, obviously, but I was seeing supply here. I saw that this supply zone wasn't mitigated just yet, so we were being very patient. I marked out a demand zone on the higher time frame. I was following structure. You can see that there's a low, there's a high, there's a low, there's a high, there's a low, and there's a high. If you're having trouble identifying what our lows and our highs are, then definitely take our course to understand what a low and a high is in the markets for us. Here's your low, Okay, here's your high, here's your low, here's your high, here's your low, right there, and then here's your high. Okay, and so we waited patiently for price to get to this demand zone, and then we looked for prices to reverse, to continue back bullish. And then, let's just zoom in all the way here. Prices weren't doing too much over here, prices were just doing this. And then I quickly asked myself, okay, well, maybe price is bearish now. Okay, we're waiting for other demand zones to be tapped. Unfortunately, no other demand zones were tapped. Price just reversed up here, took out this little liquidity here and pushed prices up. So I was like, okay, well, we're a buy for sure, And my rule of thumb is to wait for chalks, right? You can see that there's a chalk here, and I believe there was a chalk there, a small little chalk. Although I didn't take my buys here, I took my buys here because I wanted more confirmation with with this. So we marked our supply zone, waiting to see if price can come up to the supply zone and then come back to this demand and then push up. Because now we'll have structure pushing bullish from here, right? You can clearly see we have a chalk here, right? And then we have to entrust the process that the market should go up from here. Prices respect this demand zone. I didn't take it. I didn't buy it from here. I really just waited for more confirmation. You can see how the supply zone was tested. We're looking for the supply zone to push prices down. I didn't take this on the 15 second. I took this on the 5 minute, I think. Yes, 5 seconds. Excuse me. I was looking to sell here quickly, but why chase the market quickly and why get in fast when you can just wait for the actual move? So the actual move happened here. I highlighted this huge down candle here. I split the risk in half, and then I just took the first trade. I took it at the open here and entrusted the whole process. Once price broke structure here at this time, I was looking to enter again. I was just simply following structure. I saw that there was a low, there was a high, there was a low, and that there was another high here. So I was waiting for price to retrace back to that structure, and then we would take the next buy here to continue prices to the upside. As you can see, we took it and we just entrusted our process again. Very simple, very easy. We took our first TP here below at the zone here, and then our second TP at the high at the zone, and then we were out on this trade. I believe this was the 29th. Yes, the 29th on here. All right, so let's continue here. All right, so yesterday's trading was on the 30th, and we were here at this time. We were on the 5 minute. We obviously go on the 1 hour to scope a little bit, scope the structure a little bit to see what's happening. Obviously, we can see that we're higher highs and higher lows here. I'm sorry, lower lows and lower highs right here. And we were all the way down at this little area here where this extension happened. You can see prices going at lower lows and lower highs over here as well. And so we were just really scoping at this area here. We knew that price should come here eventually, but at this point, since we're scalping, we were looking to decide to take trades in here while price was pushing to the upside here. Now, I'll be really honest when I say this. I didn't take this trade, although I had a position here. This was yesterday evening at 17:25, which I believe is, what is it? 17. It's I think 6 or 7 p.m. in the evening time here in Russia, since I'm out here in Russia. So, all right, let's begin with these ones here. So right here we see that we had a chalk that has happened here. Okay, all the way to the left, I didn't apply any any demands zones. Excuse me. Right over here, we're just reacting off to price actually showing us a chalk here. And normally when there's a chalk, price moves in the trend that we're looking forward to, or in terms of the trend would be up in this case, right? So it'd be moving up, but it may not break this high, since this high never broke this high. So we knew price wasn't going to be pushing all the way back to this supply zone here. So what I did was I waited for price to get to this area of supply. You can see that we have a high, we have a low, we have a high and a low, a high and a low. If we can mark this out a little clearer for you guys to see, that's what we're looking at. Okay, so we knew that price was coming at the supply zone here. Once we got there, we dropped to the 30-second time frame. We're just waiting for price to stop and respect the supply zone, the major supply zone on our higher time frame, and then we went all the way down to our 5-second time frame. Now, I dropped down on the 5-second time frame to look for price to fully push and or extend and then break structure. As you can see, we have a chalk right in this, right there, right? And there was our low, there was our extreme high. Okay, once that has happened, I patiently waited for price to pull and retrace all the way back up, back to the supply zone, because we understand when price happens, when a chalk happens, price has to come and retrace all the way back up. Okay, this is the first move, the origin of the move that has happened at the high and has come in to mitigate this demand zone right there. So we're just waiting this whole time. And what happened here was price didn't do anything, right? Price showed us another extension to the downside, so we just played, we adapted to the market, and we realized that this is our high and this is our current low down here, or whenever the low is about to create. Okay, there was a huge, so we definitely missed the chance to look for to sell off here. Obviously, you might think this is kind of weird of me, but I realized that we had a flip here and I didn't take a trade here. There you can see that there's a flip right there. Okay, where there was our low, there was our high, price came down, stalled here, pushed up a little bit, then broke below, so that we consider this as our flip because this low failed to break this high and it flipped. So this would have been our sell here to take off the rest of the way. So that's what happened. That's what happened to us right there. So we weren't able to take a sell. And then, just as we're mapping out structure, we're just looking for structure to continue building. This was broken by a hair. You can see that this was potentially it's a wick on the higher time frame. So once we get that chalk formation, again, we're looking to push bullish here. We're looking for price to come in, mitigate this last area of supply where price pushed so aggressively. Remember, when price is pushing aggressively from either demand or supply, that's where the banks have left off. Okay, they've left off aggressively, so therefore price needs to come back to fill in those positions, the positions that weren't fulfilled for other traders in the markets, right? So we waited for price to go up here. We did see a chalk here, and so we were anticipating for price to come back down. Now, why were we anticipating for price to come back down? Well, because we saw that we had a low, a high, and a low, and another high. So when price breaks it out of a chalk, it does have to come back to retrace back to an area of demand. The reason why it didn't come all the way back down here is because price already, this was the origin of the move that price broke this high structure. So it made sense for us to come here. This would also be considered a flip where price has this high, right? Price comes down, touches this high, then retraces, and then just flips like that all of a sudden. So this was our key area of interest. We waited for price to come back down. Now notice it tapped our supply. I was going to look for a sell, but then, well, you'll see what happens actually. See, that was my sell right there. I didn't sell it right now. I was just focused on the buy because I understood we had a chalk. Now, if you can look at structure, obviously we have a high, low, right here. Oop, high, low, right? And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why are you buying here? This whole thing is a sell, right? We're still on a downtrend. Yes, we are. Sometimes when I see things, good setups like this, I'll take it anyway. I'll ignore the main setup for some reason. I don't know. That's just a weird part, the way that I do things, I guess. Because I already initiated myself on this move here, and I was thinking to myself, this is where I need to be looking for buys. So I jumped down to the 5-second time frame, and I waited for a chalk, as you can see here, and then waited for price to tag me in, and then we just waited patiently for price to go up, go up bullish here. Excuse me. We targeted this high only because we did see a high, a low, and another high and another low here. So this was the safe bet. This high was a safe bet only because this high here, as you can see if we zoom out, this high here didn't break out above this high. So it made no sense to target this high just yet. But you might be asking, well, aren't you? Why do you have a supply? Why do you have a sell there ready to go? You know, well, that's because this is our extreme high here. So anything can happen with the market, right? Price can come here, finish, reject, come back down here and go back up and then go down, right? Anything is probable in the market. We just need to take safer targets and safer zones. So this was a safer zone for me. I think we had a 7% on this trade. So we took it and just hoped for the best, waiting for prices to come and tap that supply zone, and it did, right? So at this point, we're just waiting for sells now. We're looking for sells now. From this point, it was a little weird. It was structure was a little bit weird because we're on a sell, but we're also on a buy, right? And this is where I have to get my mind around to what was actually happening here. Are we on a buy or are we on a sell, right? Uptrend or downtrend? I was in this area. I was thinking to myself, okay, we're in a downtrend, so I got to sell with a dominant trend, obviously. But one thing that is weird, you can see here there was a chalk that happened, right? And I marked out liquidity, the inducement that was, tricking us to the market to sell early, right? I didn't sell. I was waiting patiently. Then I was like, all right, there's, this is obviously a sell here, so we're just waiting for price to pull back. We marked our area of supply zone. Since that zone was actually pretty huge, we wanted to just risk 0.5% there. And so we took the trade, thinking that price should go down. We're like, yay, this is great. And then price just took us out. I was like, all right, we'll take 1L for the team. Now, I know why this was not a sell, and I'll explain to you why. If you zoom out, you can see that structure here. There was a chalk. Price was pushing bullish. Price broke the first high, respected this low with this low here. You can see that there's a low here, a lower high and another lower high, and a higher high. So obviously the next high had to be created, right? Or at least we're anticipating for the next high to create. So either I should have just been out of this trade entirely here, right? Taking the capital, which I did, and not trade here and just wait for something to happen here, wait for another sign, another signal, excuse me guys, I had some internet problems here. Okay, so yeah, the reason why this wasn't a sell is because we were already bullish here on the 1 minute time frame, pushing bullish here. Yes, it did respect the supply zone here, but order flow was pushing upwards still. As you can see, this high here, this high was not able to break this low, so it respected and pushed up. So that's why we shouldn't be looking for sells here. And I already knew it in hindsight. I knew that we shouldn't be looking for sells here. I just did it anyway, and this is where that that gambling mindset comes into play, right? So what happened here? Oh, actually, I did take the sell. Excuse me. So I took the sell, and I'll tell you why. We had a chalk here. Where was it? Don't even see it right here. Oh, yeah, I see it right here. Okay, we had a chalk here and here. Okay, it's hard to see especially when you're on the seconds time frame. This is a chalk right here, right there. Okay, and so when chalks happen like this, obviously they come back to the extreme. More times than not, they come back to the extreme unless there's a flip that's happening right when it stops at that low and then retrace and then tries to push up and then goes down. Something like this, but this is actually liquidity being built internally right here. You can see it right there. Okay, and once price pushes up like that, then I was just able to take that sell immediately and then just trust in the process. Now, once I took the sell, I'm gonna be honest here. I didn't stay in quite all the way in. I took about 4% out of this. I think it was about 4%, yeah, like right around there. So about 4.3, I think it was, something around there. Price kept going back up like this, and then price stopped here, and I was like, all right, I was, as a trader, you need to trust in your process, right? And okay, I stopped right here. As soon as price started pushing up, I saw there was another higher low created here. So then I just stopped immediately and took out pretty much all my money on this trade. And so what's funny about this trade is you should always trust your process, trust the process of how the market, and just let the market do its thing, right? So therefore, price did go down to the low, to this extreme low that I was looking to target, and sometimes things like this just happen. Remember, the other thing is there wasn't really a chalk that happened below this low right here, as you see. So this was still of a questionable trade that is happening here. It's very questionable. But at the same time, we did have a chalk here, which also confirms that that's our potential sell. Based off of this supply zone that's being respected heavily. You can see that there's liquidity from the highs creating here, and we mapped that liquidity out just in case price comes up there eventually to tap us out, just to make sure that we're in the right market. Okay, right side of the market is what I meant. Okay, so let's continue here. I was probably doing something here. Busy. Once we understood that price broke structure here, so we're looking for any change of character to push price bullish. I was being patient here a lot of the times. I wasn't really looking for any entries yet. I was looking for the high to be broken here, and right there. So we had a high, a low, right, and there was your high here. So we're looking for that high to be broken right there. Once that high was broken, we wait for prices to either come to this demand area here. And as you see, I had it marked there. Nothing came over there. Then I looked to buy here. I'm sorry. Price then came back here, respected whatever it was here, and then pushed price bullish. Now we have the extreme high, and here's the low now. And then price just pushed up, and we're like, all right, well, this is our buy here. Since we're following order flow, we're going to be buying here. So this was the next area to buy. I positioned myself very well in the market. I had a 1% of risk right here. I took this trade, I believe. Yeah, right here. Yeah. Took this trade here, and I was just following structure. There wasn't any specific chalks. Normally I would wait for chalks, but since I knew what was going on in and around this area, there was higher highs and higher lows happening here. I was just following structure. Normally when you're following structure, price goes in the intended direction that it goes towards. Of course, I could have waited patiently a lot more, did wait for price to tag our order block there. Then you can see here, this is kind of where I got a little nerve-wracking, where there's liquidity, but then there's this last low here, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, is price going to tag us out, right? Like here's that order block here, there. Now that chalk happened here. Right now there's a safer zone for us to look for buys here, either here, right? You might have had your risk a little low here just to protect this low. Yeah, eventually this whole trade actually played out, pushing bullish like this, and then we got out of the market at a 5.6%. So you can see how fast these markets are going, right? Like we're literally stacking orders, order after order. All right, so to continue back here, we were looking at this trade here. We saw how price was respecting this major supply zone, and as you can see all this liquidity being built internally here, we were looking to take this trade. Now I was looking to target either this area of supply, this demand here, or the extreme here. So the way I took this trade was I saw we had that chalk right there. Okay, that was the first sign was right here, right? The second one was right there. We needed to wait for all this sideways movement, to complete. Once I saw that I had this chalk from here to here, it broke it by the low. This is our type 2 structure. I had to wait for price to go bullish all the way back here, because I understand when chalks happen again, you know, price has to go back to the extreme if it wants to go back in the intended direction. Right now we see that there's a high and there's a low, there's another high and there's another low. I could have looked for potential sells in here, but I waited for price to really get over here, and then I waited for another chalk as well, just to be sure. Now let me be clear here. I took this was a very aggressive sell, by the way, only because price is pushing bullish here. Okay, and the reason why I sold it here is because we had a prior chalk here that happened there, and nothing was mitigated here. Okay, and so that's why we took this this trade based off of this high here, respecting this supply zone here. And so there was this low that occurred that swept liquidity here that mitigated whatever was in here, this order block, and then I looked to sell off here. So that's why this was still very aggressive, nonetheless, but everything played out correctly, and we just stayed in the market, and we trusted in the process, right? You can see we marked our higher highs and higher lows here. This was a beautiful trade. I think it was about 10.4%, and that's where I ended my trade, right there. Then I had this demand area here to look for buys, but I didn't buy anything. I was just being patient, looking for more trades that I eventually was thinking I was going to take advantage of. I marked here, there was extreme impulsive move to the downside, and then price was, I was looking for price to come back and retrace to this supply area. Okay, and so I wasn't buying anything. I was really just waiting for price to push all the way back up there. Price reacted nicely here, as you see. Price just broke so bullish, and I was looking for price to come and respect this supply area. Once it did, it gave us that beautiful chalk. Before that chalk happened, I believe, yeah, there we go, there was that chalk. And then once that chalk happened, I just targeted our current area of supply. Very easy, right? Tapped us in like that, and I just stayed in the trade. And then I took partials here just because there was, I don't know, some weird doubt in me thinking price should probably push up here based off of this low and high here. So we're essentially trading against the market, but we're also trading with the market, which is a funny kind of perspective here, right? You can see that there's a high, there's a low, but there's also a chalk here where the liquidity was building. So this was an appropriate buy here, right? I didn't buy anything here, but as you can see, price went up. And then that's where I finished my trade, at this low. Yeah. Yeah, and so what happened here was, if I had my risk set a little higher, I would have taken advantage of this huge trade going down, but did not do that at all, and that's totally fine with that. We're totally fine with that. So let's continue with the next trade. Here we had prices going lower low, lower highs, internal lower low, lower highs, right? We just had this huge bearish momentum, this huge move to the downside, so we know this is our major supply zone here. This is our major sell if price gets up to this high here. And we were just positioning ourselves very well here, waiting for prices to create. You can clearly see here we had a bunch of liquidity. We had our highs, lows, lows, and our highs and our lows here. So I was anticipating for price to come back and then to shoot down all the way bearish like this. Let's play it on from here. You can see liquidity was taken, price is mitigated. I didn't take it right away. I waited for that chalk, the chalk happened here. As you can see, there's the high, right? There's the high, there's that low broken, and here's our sell, and we just entrusted the process. Again, wait for price to come back down, and you can see here we took that TP right there for a good 5.6%. Okay, that's all we needed, right? This is scalping. Scalping is you're in the markets in and out very fast. Then we had, I think, the last two trades. I was doing something here, so I wasn't really focusing on what was actually happening because I was away from my desk at that time. Let me just zoom out here and just fast forward. Okay. Okay, we can see that this major demand level was tapped here on the 4H. You can see there's a 4H POY. I didn't take a buy. I wasn't looking for buys here just yet, but it did tap. Once it rejected that major demand area right here, this major demand zone, I only waited for something clear, some more clarity here, which was a break of this high here. If it could prove to me that it broke this high here, then I could look for buys to the upside. And I knew if it was going up, it would target this major supply zone here. And this is the move that I was looking for potential sells if it happened here. But fortunately for us, this is where that last trade that I've taken here at this high, and that was it. But right here, price rejected this low. Price rejected the supply zone. We're following our order. There's a low, high, below the high, and that low. So I knew price shouldn't come in this area here to go for the buys here. And we scaled all the way down to the 5 seconds here, and we look to take this market after a clear after the chalk. Right here, there was that demand zone. Prices came and respected that demand zone, so I noticed there's liquidity creating. So there was clear liquidity that needed to be taken, and there's that liquidity grab right there. If we just zoom in just a little bit, you can see there's this move here, took out this low here. So once liquidity is taken, we know that price moves back in the intended direction, right? Price is trying to move up. It's respecting that order flow that you see here, that high, that low, that high, and this low would be next. So we took the trade after that liquidity was taken with an exceptional risk right down here, and then holding price till we had it to the first high here. We didn't know if this supply zone here, this one right over here, would take price all the way down. Once that TP, the first TP was made, we took out our partials and we let the rest run. You can see that the second TP was finished right just below the zone over here, and that's where we ended our trade with a good, I believe it was 13.4% for this trade. And I believe that was all the trades we've taken, although lastly I want to end with this. Over the night, during the evening, notice where, look at this, let me just zoom in here quickly. Notice how our supply zone was tapped right at the high here. This is my initial like ultra major move trade that I wanted to take, and it tapped my supply zone there, and I was like, okay, well, I was already eating dinner at this time, and I usually don't trade very late of the night. Later in the nights. Excuse me, why is this going? Jeez, please. And then later in the nights, and price just kept going down. So it did what I was looking forward to, obviously, and there we go. Price would have tapped my demand zone, and I would have been out at this point. But yeah, I didn't take this trade. It would have been amazing. R&R 8.6%, obviously. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you found out very informative. If you liked this video, please throw that thumbs up on the video, and definitely subscribe to this channel, because we always provide free content for you all. We love you, and we'll see you next.